Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about Igira the Cruel on all difficulties for the Elemental Shaman in 10.2. This boss is very similar to the first boss in the sense that it is just not one of Elemental's better bosses. A lot of the overall damage is going to revolve around who can do the most snap damage to the spears when they come out, and Elemental just doesn't really do a great job with it. There's some things that we can do, and we're going to talk about them, but just note that especially on Heroic and under, things like Liquid Magma Totem might not be the best pickup. You might even just want to take a point of like Elemental Equilibrium over taking Liquid Magma Totem, because spreading those Flame Shocks is going to be difficult. On Mythic, you might be able to get a little bit more out of that, spread those Flame Shocks, maybe line that up with a Primordial Wave, but sometimes the timing just doesn't work out, and it's really not worth holding Primordial Wave specifically for that, just because of how quickly these things can fall over. But Stormkeeper will give you some of that snap damage. Again, if you don't really care about your overall damage, you're not trying to compete against other specs or people in your raid, you can just go full single target and just kind of ignore the spears and let them deal with it, because they're going to die pretty quickly. If it becomes a problem, you can obviously switch to the cleave build, which is what I'm going to show in this clip, but you can just go full single target and just plunk the boss and just go for high boss damage instead. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the fight itself. Alright, so about 3 seconds before the pull, I'm going to drop down my Fire Elemental, go into a Lava Burst directly into Primordial Wave, and just start chucking out Lava Bursts. If I don't have any Lava Bursts, then I'm going to try to use my Elemental Blast. If I have neither of those things, then I'm going to use my Lightning Bolt. You can min-max your Surge of Powers with Lightning Bolts if you want to, but make sure you're not over-capping on the Lava Burst. That's the one thing we really want to try to avoid. So with this first set of spears coming out, this is why I've held Stormkeeper to this point, because we want to try to line up that Stormkeeper with these spears as often as possible to get as much damage as we can onto them. So I'm going to precast my Stormkeeper as this is coming out. So there goes the Stormkeeper cast right there, right as he's about to finish the Blistering Spears. As the spears come out, I'm just going to double use both Chain Lightning casts back to back, because they are going to just absolutely melt. You're not going to be able to compete with pretty much any class when it comes to being able to deal with those. Any kind of class that has snap damage onto those spears, it's going to be very hard to compete other than just basically back-to-back using Chain Lightning with Stormkeeper. Even as high as Mythic, it's going to be the same way. For this second set, I'm just going to throw out 2 Chain Lightning casts, just natural. No Stormkeeper on that one because it wasn't off cooldown, but it's better to do that than to even bother trying to use Liquid Magma Totem this early on in the fight, because they just die so quickly. You're not going to be able to get that Flame Shock spread to mean anything in this opening set, so just keep that in mind. So here it's just mainly just dodging mechanics and just trying to do as much single target damage to the boss as possible. So with these swirls, you'll notice they last a long time on the ground. It's about like 3 seconds or so before, like from when the swirl appears till the damage actually happens on the ground. So don't try to just like instantly run out constantly. Try to stutter step the best you can. If you're in the middle of a cast when one comes out, let the cast finish and then stutter step out of it. That way you're just not having to cancel as many casts. So by saving our Stormkeeper, or for that first set of spears, we now have it for the third set, and it'll kind of, for the most part, line up fairly nicely for the rest of the fight every time we have these spears set. So for this one, they're going to die a little bit slower. I am just going to go back to back Chain Lightning spam on both of those charges. I could have maybe fit in an Elemental Blast in between there, just to use some of that Maelstrom if I had the time to do that, but for the most part, it's not really going to make or break it. You don't really have to worry about overcapping Maelstrom. That's not really that big of a deal here. It's mainly about just trying to fit in some damage onto those spears. So right here, the time to kill these has kind of slowed down because we're not in a Bloodlust anymore. But even there, I dropped the Liquid Magma Totem and they just instantly melt. So that was kind of like a wasted damage instance for me by trying to even put down Liquid Magma Totem. Kind of is what it is. On lower difficulties, even at this point, it's going to be very, very hard to use Liquid Magma Totem. You might even consider not taking Liquid Magma Totem and just taking that maybe in Mythic. Maybe move that point to Elemental Equilibrium just to get a little bit more single target damage. Here, people were kind of screwing around and putting spears out in the back. And now I will say, if this happens to you, like maybe not on purpose, like what was going on in our raid here, if this does happen, this is actually really beneficial for us because we're really good at spread cleave, and this would allow us to then dot up things around the room a little bit better if they were spread out. So here I'm able to get a little bit more, just a tiny bit of cleave onto that back one there because it lived a little bit longer. But that's kind of the only situation on these lower difficulties where you're going to be able to get any real benefit out of spreading our flame shocks. So like I said, if you feel like it, you don't have to take Liquid Magma Totem on the lower difficulties here. I have Stormkeeper for this set. This is set number, what was this, 4, I believe, or 5? But again, anytime you have that Stormkeeper, always try to line it up with those spears. So, and that's pretty much the whole fight. And from there, it's just dodging mechanics and killing the boss. So here we have one more set of spears. We're just going to let this play all the way out. And I'm just going to get some spams of Chain Lightning out on them, because it was not worth to dot them up, as I've said several times before. And now we're just going to single target the boss. It's very repetitive, this fight. Once you get it down, it is very, very repetitive. Again, stutter stepping here. I'm going to use my Spirit Walker's Grace just so I can make sure I can finish off this boss without having to worry about canceling any casts, because I hadn't used it at this point. And this is where the boss will die. So the one thing that we didn't see here in this clip is the, I believe, what is it called? It's like called Shattered Heart, or it's the Healing Absorb mechanic that makes you spawn orbs. I'll put that up on screen now. Basically, this is where I would send my Spirit Walker's Grace if we had gotten to that phase. If you see this on Mythic, this is the best place to use it. It just allows you to dodge orbs a lot quicker, as well as not having to drop any casts. You're not having to worry about canceling casts constantly or trying to predict where the balls are going. You can just already be moving when the mechanic goes out, and then you can just focus on dodging without having to lose any of that damage uptime. And then the other thing I want to say, just to show it real quick, you can get some extra damage in Mythic with these spears, but like I said, they melt really, really quickly. So I'll let that be up to you. If you're progressing on Mythic, you can try to get some damage onto this. There are some spear sets just based on other people's cooldowns, if they're not planning them out around each other, which most people won't because it's such an early boss. Maybe you can fit some damage in when those spears are not dying as quickly. So that's what I would suggest for this boss. Again, you can just go full single target. These spears are going to melt, and there's really not a whole lot to dodge in the way of mechanics. It's a very simple boss. It's the second boss. What do you expect, you know? So again, not really one of our greater bosses here, but we will start getting kind of into the meat of what bosses are good for Elemental in the next couple of videos. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful to you. If it was, feel free to give it a thumbs up. That really goes a long way to help the channel. I do stream at Twitch at twitch.tv/Ridmark, so feel free to give me a follow there if you're interested in that. And I also do have a Discord if you want to ask me any questions, either personally or to just not in the comments with you, because sometimes it's hard for me to respond to every comment. Sometimes I'm not alerted to comments on YouTube, so if you want to reach me more directly, feel free to give that a shot as well. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.